Today's lesson is on solving inequalities that have variables on both sides. As usual, there is a video guide to go along with this lesson, so if you haven't printed the video guide yet, go ahead and pause the lesson, print the video guide, come back and do the examples with me. Now, solving inequalities with variables on both sides is almost exactly like solving equations with variables on both sides. The only difference, and it's the key difference from inequalities and equations, is that if you divide by a negative number, you must flip the inequality sign. Other than that, the steps are exactly the same. So if we take a look at number 1, we have b plus 2 is less than 14 minus 5b. So what we need to do is get those letters on the same side. Now, with equations, I told you that I always move my letters to the left, and the reason why I do that is actually so that when I get to inequalities, I can keep that letter on the left-hand side, because that's where they're going to put the letters, on the left. So if these are multiple choice questions, their letter will be on the left-hand side. It's just going to be easier for you to identify what the correct answer is if your letter is already on the left-hand side. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to get all of my variables over on the left side, which means this minus 5b needs to cancel. And to cancel anything, we must do the opposite. So instead of minus 5b, I'm going to add 5b to both sides. Now remember, this b here at the beginning, there is a 1 in front. They didn't write it, but we can go ahead and write it in so we don't forget about it. So 1b plus 5b is 6b. The plus 2 just comes down. My inequality sign stays the same because I have not multiplied or divided by a negative number. The 14 drops down. My 5b's over here will cancel, which is what we wanted. Now I only have a variable on the left, and that's exactly what we wanted to have happen. So now that all my variables are on the left side, I want my numbers to be on the right side. So the first thing I'm going to cancel is that plus 2. So to cancel out a plus 2, we will subtract 2 on both sides. 2 minus 2 cancels out. I'm left with 6b is less than, keep your inequality the same. You have not multiplied or divided by a negative number, so keep that inequality the same. 14 divided by negative 2 is, 14 minus 2 is 12. And then our last step is division. Divide by the 6. So I'm going to divide both sides by 6. Bring the 6's cancel, so I'll bring down my b. My less than symbol will stay the same. Okay? It's going to be b is less than because I did not divide by negative. I divided by a positive 6. So keep it the same. 12 divided by 6 is 2. So my answer is b is less than 2. For problem number 2, our inequality is 5x plus 1 is greater than 3x plus 11. So again, to solve this, I want to get all of my variables on the left side of the inequality. To do that, I'm going to cancel out the 3x because it's on the right. I want it to be on the left. That is a positive 3x, so to cancel it, I will subtract 3x from both sides. So 5x minus 3x is 2x. The plus 1 just comes down. My inequality sign just comes down. I did not divide or multiply by a negative, so I don't flip it. My 3x's cancel, and I bring down the 11. At this point, I want my numbers on the right side, so this plus 1 needs to cancel. To cancel out a plus 1, we will subtract 1 on both sides. So plus 1 and minus 1 cancels. My 2x just comes down, as does the inequality sign. Do not flip it because you did not multiply or divide by a negative. And then 11 minus 1 is 10. My last step would be to divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And I get x is greater than 5. I leave my inequality sign the same because I did not divide by a negative. So our answer is x is greater than 5. For problem number 3, our inequality is negative 19 minus n is less than negative 4 plus 4n. Again, the main thing we want to do is make sure we get all of those letters here on the left-hand side because that's where they will put all of their letters if it's a multiple choice problem. So looking at this, my letter that's on the right-hand side is the 4n. So to cancel out 4n, I will have to subtract 4n from both sides. Now my negative 19 will stay the same, but I can go ahead and combine my n's. Remember, this is a negative 1n. They didn't write the 1, but I'm going to go ahead and put it in the problem. So negative 1n and negative 4n, the signs are the same, so I add them, and I get negative 5n is less than. My negative 4 just comes down, and these 4n's cancel. So all of my letters, all of my variables are on the left-hand side. Now I want my numbers on the right side. So I need to cancel out this negative 19. To cancel it out, I just do the opposite. Instead of negative 19, I'll do positive 19 or add 19 to both sides. So my 19's cancel. I get negative 5n is less than, keep your inequality sign the same. You have not divided or multiplied by a negative number, so it stays less than. Negative 4 plus 19, the signs are different, so I will subtract them. Keep the sign of the bigger number, so it's positive 15. And my last step is to divide. I need to divide both sides by negative 5. They cancel. I get n now. At this step, I divided both sides by a negative number. They were both being divided by negative 5. So that means I need to flip the inequality sign. Instead of less than, I need greater than. So it's greater than, and then 15 divided by negative 5 is negative 3. So our answer for number 3 is n is greater than negative 3. For problem number 4, we have 13 plus 3b is greater than or equal to 6 plus 10b. Again, the steps are the same. The whole idea is to get those letters on the left-hand side. So my 10b needs to be canceled. It's plus 10b, so the opposite would be to subtract 10b from both sides. Subtract it here, subtract it here. So my 13 just drops down. 3 minus 10 is negative 7b. Signs are different, so subtract, keep the sign of the bigger number. So I keep the sign of my 10, which is negative. My inequality sign stays the same because I have not multiplied or divided by a negative number. I need to bring down the 6, and my 10b's cancel, which is great because now I only have letters on the left, which is what I want. Now to move the numbers to the right. The 13 needs to be canceled. It is a positive 13, so the opposite would be negative 13 or minus 13 on both sides. 13's will cancel. My negative 7b just drops down. So does my greater than or equal to sign. 6 minus 13, the signs are different, so you need to subtract. 13 minus 6 is 7. Keep the sign of the bigger number, so it's negative 7. And then my last step is to divide. I need to divide both sides by negative 7. So they cancel. I have b here, and at this step, I did division, and I divided both of them by a negative 7. So because both sides had that negative 7, I must flip the inequality sign. So instead of greater than or equal to, I'm going to make it less than or equal to. Negative 7 divided by negative 7 is a positive 1. So b is less than or equal to positive 1 is our solution for problem number 4. At this time, go ahead and pause the video, work out problems 5 and 6 on your own, and then come back and check your work with mine. For problem number 5, the inequality was 3p plus 5 is less than 2p plus 12. So the first thing I did was move the letter to the left. I canceled it out by subtracting 2p on both sides. 3p minus 2p is just 1p. The plus 5 and the 12 just came down. The 2p's canceled. I kept my inequality sign the same because I didn't divide by a negative. At this step, I subtracted 5 from both sides so that my 5's canceled. Now, here you'll notice I went from 1p to just p. Remember, anytime you just have a 1 in front, it's as if the letter was there by itself. P and 1p are exactly the same. So, if you took an extra step and divided by 1, you still should have gotten p is less than 7. That's fine. You did one extra step, but it's not a big deal. You're still getting the correct answer. I just dropped it off. And then I did 12 minus 5 is 7. Again, I did not divide by a negative, so I left my inequality as less than. So p is less than 7 should have been your answer for problem number 5. On problem number 6, I needed to cancel out the 5p, so I did that first, subtracted 5p on both sides. Again, remember, p by itself means there is a 1 there, they just don't write it. So 1 and negative 5, when I combine those, I get negative 4p. The minus 9 and the minus 17 just came down. I left my inequality sign the same because I haven't multiplied or divided by a negative. And then I added 9 to both sides. Get those numbers on the right-hand side. So my 9's canceled. I got negative 4p is less than negative 8. Okay? Again, leaving my inequality sign the same because I haven't divided by or multiplied by a negative yet. And then at this point, I have to divide both sides by a negative 4. So my p just drops down. I did flip the inequality sign at this point because I did divide both sides by a negative. So it becomes p is greater than positive 2. So that's your solution for problem number 6. And that's the end of our lesson on inequalities with variables on both sides.